What a day we had today, packed with really interesting topics and really interesting speakers. And it's not over yet. I'm not sure about you, but I'm probably going to leave home from our studio today a bit smarter than I was in the morning when I arrived. And you know what else is getting smarter every day? That's artificial intelligence, of course. And today, we cannot be discussing about transformation, digital transformation and innovation without taking artificial intelligence into account. For our next panel, I'm inviting Marin Yuga, my colleague from Cluj IT Cluster, leader of the Data Intelligence Work Group, to coordinate a discussion about what artificial intelligence can do in the innovation and in the digital transformation. Marin, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ciprian. And first of all, a warm welcome to our audience. And we are really happy to address such an important topic like artificial intelligence along with innovation. In the collective mentality, these two topics are merging in the sense that innovation influences artificial intelligence, and right now artificial intelligence is a generator of innovation as well. For this session, I have a very distinguished company, which is Miss Alexandra from Bucharest AI and Mr. Alex, a good consultant in the area of intellectual property rights and artificial intelligence. So therefore, we will start with Ms. Alexandra if she's still online. If not, we will start with Mr. Alex with a presentation of intellectual property and extracting intellectual property from the value of a digital SME along with artificial intelligence. Mr. Alex, let's start.
You want me to start, Marin, yeah?
Yes, let's discuss about intellectual property and artificial intelligence.
Okay, give me a second to get my screen up. Hopefully, come on, share audio and share. There we go. Hopefully you can see my screen. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today about AI and the IP space. Many of you, I'm sure, will have heard of the controversy surrounding the patenting of AI inventions, but there is more to the world of IP than patenting. And just now, I will try to briefly give you an overview of my vision for how AI can unlock IP data and help SMEs unlock and realize the value of their IP assets, especially at a time as we're leaving hopefully moving away from a COVID environment to get back to business again. Anyway, first a bit on my background. Hopefully this works. Basically, I was led one of the teams that set up the pilot project for the IPR help desk, as it was then back in 1998 for DG Enterprise. We were tasked at that time to try to raise awareness of the importance of intellectual property for those undertaking EU-funded research activities. And I think that we were the first online assistance for IP rights. And at the time, a first, and I'm very pleased to see that it's still going today. Slightly changed their name. I think they now call themselves the EU IP Help Desk, but I believe that they're still out there helping SMEs and researchers. One thing that I found that was pretty disturbing, though, was that back in 1998, we started trying to raise awareness of the importance of IP. And recently, I know from some EU IPO studies that apparently only 9% of EU SMEs actually do protect their IP rights. And that's pretty sad. What's even worse is that, 91%, that means do not. And another figure I had quite recently was that 38% don't even realize about the importance of IP and have never heard of IP, which is quite terrible. But anyway, after IPR Help Desk, I carried on helping SMEs and academia develop their IP strategies, raising awareness of the importance of IP for creativity and innovation, and identification, protection, and exploitation of their IP, because every SME has IP. Your IP is the fruits of your creativity, your innovation, and it's important that you identify it, protect it, but also realize the value of it. And more recently, I've been looking at the potential of AI combined with DLT, which most of you know as blockchain, for the IP space. DLT, distributed ledger technology, with AI has tremendous opportunities for IP. I think it's safe to say that my IP journey was started because of my communication with WIPO and seeing what they were doing, how they were exploring this. That's WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and also through my work with the Commission. But for me, I was intrigued by the power of AI, and I knew that a lot had been done in the financial world with AI before any of us woke up to this potential for IP. And one of the most interesting things I found was this graphic, which is from a friend of mine who runs a hedge fund in London. And basically, he was telling me how he was teaching basically his AI. He was explaining, giving it information, feeding it almost like you would feed a child. But if you look at the blue line is his AI, what his AI was able to do for his hedge fund, and the dramatic fall that you can see in everyone else's, from the S&P 500, etc., to all the others, was the time of the realization of the problems with COVID, when all the markets crashed. So there's a great deal of power in AI when you link it with machine learning and natural language processing. And that is what I feel is so interesting for AI and for the IP space. So basically, where are we with AI at the moment? Well, Europe is really playing catch up with China and the US. We all know that China, I think, have it as main strategy, basically, China and AI and blockchain in China. And the US also is very powerful in this respect. In Europe, we're getting there, but I think we've got a long way to go. And we need a lot more support from the Commission and from national governments to help SMEs to use AI and realize the benefits of it. At the moment, the AI focus seems to be on two areas. First, applications that enhance the performance and efficiency of processes, and second, applications that enhance human-machine collaboration. I think we all know how the automotive industry has transformed themselves, and I think they're one of the leading users of AI. And I think that certainly the advances that we made with the COVID vaccines, etc., I think a lot of that is down to the use of AI, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that as the months go on. Another thing that all of you have heard of, as I mentioned briefly in my introduction, is the patenting of AI. I think at the moment there's a lot of talk about how you can patent AI inventions. I think that we will find that it will take some time before we see national patent offices actually coming to accept that an AI can be an inventor. But I think we all must realize that AI will help an inventor. So I think that while you perhaps won't be able to patent an invention saying it was invented by the AI, I'm sure that there will be cases where we're able to say that an AI was working and assisting a team to develop this, and so the AI has contributed in some way to helping come up with this patent. I think that will come. I mean, something we've got to realize is that all our patent laws were designed and put together in a different age. Today, we're in the age of basically of technology and digital environment, etc. And I think we have to look at transforming our laws so that they take account of where we are today. Friends of mine have said there are a lot of dinosaurs around, but I know we have to try to convince those dinosaurs that, look, we're dealing with AI, it gets a lot of benefits out there, and so we need to look at how we can protect patents and innovation that's developed between the human interface and the AI interface. And next, moving on to ethics. We all talk about ethics, and I can understand everyone being concerned about the ethics of AI, but I feel that we need to start waking up that there are other countries. I mean, primarily China is pushing ahead so fast with AI and blockchain, and the US as well. We cannot focus too much on the ethics. It's important, but I think that we need to realize that all the countries of Europe are just about democracies, while we have arguments occasionally with our politicians and perhaps don't like what they're always doing. I think that certainly the main thing that we have to realize is that we have to look at using AI for the benefit of our SMEs and for others. Look at how AI can benefit industry, can benefit, as we've already seen in the medical area, how AI can benefit medical research. Next, if I move on, whoops, hang on, sorry. I've got something on my screen, which I don't want. Right. Next, looking at my feeling is very much that AI can help unlock value of SMEs' intangible assets. Years ago, when businesses were going, it was tangible assets that everyone had. Your chairs, your table, that's what your accountants looked at. These days, we don't have that. The most valuable assets are intangible assets. And basically what we should be looking at and what AI can do, it can look at the value, the real value of these assets, look at the strength of the portfolios that SMEs have, look at the commercialization and monetization potential of these assets, and even look at technology trends across global markets, which I think was one of the things that amazed me about my friend's AI that he was using for his hedge fund. Exactly how deep he was able to go to understand what was going on, to almost see ahead what was going to happen across the markets, etc. So we can unlock the SMEs IP intangible assets, help them with products, services, and markets. We can facilitate offers of capital and other forms of financing with business, commercial partners, governments, etc. We can open opportunities both in the EU and globally, and we can help SMEs accelerate their growth and in fact, also that of the broader EU and the global innovation ecosystems. So a lot that AI can do for SMEs. We've got to support SMEs. So what do I feel is the way forward with AI? Well, as I've said, we can unlock intangible assets. We can deliver real value for these assets, for trademarks, copyrights, patents, etc. We can identify opportunities. And I think that we can also spotlight and highlight innovative high growth SMEs, because one thing that is often identified is that we put lots of money into trying to support SMEs, etc., but we're not able to get the venture capitalists and the hedge funds to identify those SMEs that are worth putting money in. So if you can use AI, identify what are the good IP assets that these companies have and put the money in there to help them. So basically that's it. As you will have gathered, I'm completely convinced of the benefits of AI. And if anyone wants to delve deeper and to get in touch with me, I'd be very happy to help you look and put you in touch with some companies that are really leading the way in using AI for the benefit of SMEs to unlock intangible assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, as well. And I encourage our audience to send us any questions they have. We will take them, we will review them, and we will respond to them. Meantime, I just have two questions for you, Alex. Especially in Eastern Europe, transitioning from tangible value into intangible value, from full inventory to zero tangible inventory as a holder of value. it's a very, let's say, fuzzy and hard process.
Hmm.
So what was your challenge, if you had any challenge, with your customers in basically extracting and shifting the mentality from tangible to intangible value?
Well, one of the one of the biggest problems for SMEs, I think, is their accountants. Accountants look at the tangible value that there is. Banks, the same, look at tangible value. So it's a battle. It's a battle. What we're trying to do is to identify how these intangible assets, the IP, does have value. We're trying to highlight where the particular SME stands within his ecosystem. Basically, how do they fit in to their competitors in their industry, and to try to show them, look, you've got this IP, the other people don't, or this IP is more valuable, your patent is more valuable, etc. And so basically just trying to highlight, if you have IP, this is where you can go. If you don't have IP, you won't be able to increase, to grow, etc. So it's difficult. It's difficult. I think that one of the big things that we need to somehow change is the policy and procedures around for accountants. We've got to somehow make intangible assets have value and show the value on the balance sheet.
It's quite interesting. That's it. Basically your approach is interesting as well. AP generate AI in generating intellectual property, and that intellectual property mined by basically the AI system to generate more value from that
Mhm.
intellectual property. It looks like the AI becomes an inventor and the manager of the
It,
intellectual
it does.
property.
It does. It's there is so much data in intellectual property. I mean, there are so many databases full of IP knowledge, and that's what the AI can extract, basically extract, collate. But it's important that we need explainable AI, because it's all very well having an AI do a job, but if in IP you've got to be able to show why has it come up with that. You can't just say, oh, the AI says this and we'll go with it. You've got to be able to say the AI says this because this and this, and we understand. So that's why I think, although lots of people are worried that there's going to be just the AI doing everything, I think there's got to be the sort of human and AI and machine collaboration. And when you get those two together, where you get explainable AI, then you're going to get some real value. I think that's extremely important.
Very, very interesting point, Mr. Alex, and I would like to continue the discussion now until our colleague Alexandra can join as well to the panel. She had some technical issues, but let's
Mhm.
continue this discussion because the question we have with explainable AI is that basically explainable AI will offer you an explanation.
Mhm.
As AI does not handle causality well, do we know for sure that it's the real explanation or just a comforting explanation?
Well, I think if we trust our logarithms, then we should be able to know that we trust it. So what I've seen of it, I think is good and I trust. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Okay, that's very good. Just a point making here that if you trust your algorithm, you won't need them to explain you or not. But anyway, we can go forward, I think, and I welcome our panelist, Alexandra. Hello, Alexandra. Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, Alexandra. Very good, and welcome back. I hope the technical issue got solved. And just a small transition here. We see that AI deals with a large spectrum of, let's say, concerns from our real life, from intellectual property to resource utilization to ideology to principles and things like this. And our colleague Alexandra will explain us a bit, present the tendencies in greening the AI, transforming the AI from a red polluting factor into a green, lean, maybe main component in our life. So Alexandra, please go on.
Thank you so much. Just to double check, can you see my screen?
Not yet. Can you present, or I can maybe share the screen myself and
Just a
you
second.
can go with the presentation.
Can you see my screen now?
Absolutely, yes. Go on. Please.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience with my troubles, since my hoping was forcing me out each time. Okay, let's do this. Thank you so much to everyone for joining my session. Hope you still have energy left. Thank you to the organizer. This is a fabulous event and impactful topics we are discussing. So it's my turn to interest you in some greening artificial intelligence, of course. So let's see what's this all about. I'm Bucharest AI co-founder. I'm an AI product strategist. I'm helping startups and companies build up their AI strategy and put it into action. I also host an Applied AI podcast where I talk with the experts, AI experts, engineers, researchers, and thought leaders about the current AI progress, its future, its challenges, and its impact. Today, I'm here to walk you through a couple of top-level information around the AI context available to us today. But red AI is versus green AI, the carbon neutral pledge, how we can unlock AI for the environment in 4 key sectors, what can we do, and what can the stakeholder group action should be. And we wrap up with our conclusions. Without further ado, I'm positive that some of you are already exposed to the fact that creating an AI can be 5 times worse for the planet than a car. That's because training an AI needs quite a lot of computing power. We need computing power for data storage. We need computing power for pre-training, for training, for modeling, for the continuous loop till we get to the production deployment. And this uses a lot of energy and creates carbon dioxide. So just to put it into a context, for us to train an algorithm on whether a picture shows a cat or not, we process millions of cat images. So as you can imagine, all this processing power, it takes quite a lot of energy. And to compare it, this type of energy we are using to create our AI work is comparable to aviation in terms of fuel emissions. So that's quite a lot. And we need to understand how we can green AI from 2 perspectives. One is how we can use AI to use it for AI applications to improve climate change, sustainability, and how we can make our own AI work more sustainable. So this perspective of how much AI is using touches on how we can use AI in a more sustainable way. And just to run an idea with you, most of us have already used AI for sustainability reasons. So if you download in an app that does plant identification, I did that recently because one of my plants looked a bit yellowish. So if you downloaded the plant identifier to check out the plant's health, you've used AI for a sustainability and green purpose. So it is very common to use already AI for such green purposes applications. But the cost of energy is linearly increasing with the size of the data set, the training data set of the single example we work on, or the hyperparameters experiments. The current status is that AI papers tend to focus on accuracy metrics and not so much on efficiency metrics. And we use a lot of computational power to drive our AI work. The change to green AI would be using or smarter using this energy to drive novel results without necessarily increasing the computational power, and ideally reducing it. In respect to metrics, we should focus on efficiency at the same time as we focus on accuracy. And I was very pleased to see that NeuroIPS conference from 2 years ago actually added this metric when you submit your paper. So your model needs to include as well the accuracy, as well as the efficiency. So there are steps being made towards a greener AI development. We also need to look at the amount of work required to generate the result in AI, and the sum of work for all the tuning and experiments. As you already been exposed to, training an AI model requires quite a lot of retraining. So on average, we do around 14 retrains, 14 to 20 retrains for a model for a small task application. So that's quite a lot. It's computational heavy. So if we were to think how we can move from red AI to green AI, there are two main actions we need to look at. One is using power from a renewable energy, because it consumes quite a lot. And two, we should measure efficiency and not only accuracy. I think the important question for the future of AI here is finding that point of saturation, if it even exists. And I'm not saying that all red AI work is negative or is bad. You'll see further down in my presentation an example of red AI where the work is good. It unlocks further opportunities. But what we should do, we should look at the input as well as the output for the red AI work, and we should quantify it. We should quantify the impact. We should quantify the workload and the time and the cost for it. Towards a greener AI. So this is what we can do for making our AI work in a much more sustainable fashion. The current AI sub-technologies most widespread out there are, of course, machine learning, that we use it to actually make sense of data, to optimize costs, how we use a certain system or reduce the effects. Then we have deep learning, that it's actually the much more advanced machine learning, because it finds matching patterns, it creates more meaning between information, and it's able to shift through a massive amount of information and data to make quick, useful, smart decisions. Currently, I think we need to democratize more deep learning. I think machine learning is quite widespread, its use cases, its understanding. But for deep learning, we are still in the first stages of democratizing commercial application and understanding. Also, part of the widespread AI, we have the training and computation requirements. The training is usually done on a computer with GPU, and it takes around hundreds of GPUs running for weeks or months to train one AI model one time. Just to give you a bit of context, the computation requirement for a deep learning research are doubling every few months. So we saw an approximate increase from 300,000 increase from 2012 to 2018. That's quite a lot. So this is an example, for example, of a red AI, where we use massive computational power. Maybe it was too expensive, the impact was heavy on carbon dioxide, but the result unlocked something that builds more further opportunities and applications for us. This is DOL-E, a model introduced in 2021. It contains 12 billion parameters. It is trained on the data set of images linked to text. And in the first image, the orange one on top, you can actually see the prompt was to draw a picture of a penguin made of carrot. All these images are created by the AI model. None is real. So it combines ideas to draw something unique. Here we may have IP questions, and I'm sure Alex from the previous session could have a lot to say in this direction. But what I'm trying to highlight here is the fact that not all red AI work is bad. This is a good AI work that unlocks further opportunities and further creative work. The carbon neutral pledge, why is it important? Well, it's important because we use AI models and AI services from top providers like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. And the Paris Agreement that says by 2040 to be zero net carbon neutral, it's something that they are considering and they've pledged to, but they want to be that and be ready to be zero net carbon emission by 2030, 10 years earlier. Google is already using machine learning to reduce with 40% its cost of data center by using cooling techniques. Amazon, the Earth's customer-centric company, made its mission for sustainability for the very first time, and is running the climate pledge and a 10 billion climate fund for startups. And Microsoft is already meeting data flows, carbon neutral statements, and building AI for good programs, and also joined the climate pledge from Amazon. It is important to be aware of these cloud providers, because consequently, you'll have to use their services. And I think it's important for us as builders, as developers, as promoters of sustainability, to be aware of how carbon neutral a certain AI model or AI service provider is, what are their action in this direction, and how could you further use this? Can you estimate your own carbon emissions of your AI model from their own estimation of AI models and services? These are some good questions to ask yourselves. On top of this, for more sustainable AI work, we need to think of greening our databases, because databases, it's where we keep our data sets, and data sets are important to train an AI. A very important thing is that we need to look more into selecting and pre-sorting the data set beforehand. This will actually allow us to consume less energy and use it more wisely in respect to workload. Also, the location of the data sets, the data center plays an important role. Some of the question we need to ask ourselves is, obviously, we need to know exactly where we want to go when we build something, so we can limit the energy and the search, and hence, consequently, for AI to use less computing power. But other question could be, do I work with the most efficient hardware, or are the algorithms that I use efficient as possible? When I look at the cloud provider, does it use green energy? Is it carbon neutral? What is its sustainability commitment looking like? Where is the location of the data center? All these are important questions to figure out, and ideally further use them in your marketing of your AI product. One tip I have for you is to be aware and be exposed more to tools that assess your carbon emissions. So it will be great if we could all start attributing our carbon emissions impact to our models. So it'd be cool to see actually how much carbon emissions we create. And here is that sort of tool from GitHub that measures the machine learning carbon emissions impact of your model. Feel free to use it. What are some AI for good programs out there? Where there are a ton. I'm happy to see more awareness to our sustainability for environmental AI applications, but as well to more sustainable AI work. Some of the programs are Microsoft's AI for Earth program, the Step Up Coalition, the Stanford Sustainability and AI Lab, the AI for Good Global Summit, the AI for Good Lab by CIFAR and Amy, and the Amazon's The Climate Pledge Fund. There are, of course, many others, but these are the ones that you should definitely keep an eye on. How can we unlock AI for the environment? Well, I would like to focus on 4 key sectors here. Water, agriculture, energy, and transport. These are the top 4 sectors where AI can have a huge impact, can revolutionize these industries, and can switch the focus from brute force, from hard work, to actually more insightful work, a more qualitative work of our workers. These 4 sectors are also the 4 sectors where the need of upskilling and reskilling is also heavily seen and experienced. But before I jump into the application, how we use AI in these 4 sectors, here are some questions that we should ask ourselves when we use AI in such AI applications for the environment. Of course, the most important is, what do we do with the result of how the tools are being used? Okay, we've used AI into an AI application for the environment. What do we do with the result? How do we use it? What impact do we have? How large is our impact? And of course, you have anyone should think, to what extent will AI transform and disrupt their organization and markets? Because AI will rapidly grow to any sector and market. Some of them are more disrupted now than others. Some others will be in the future, but the future is immediate, is more rapid than we actually know. So how quickly will this take hold? Be exposed to such information. Try to collect as much information, industry know-how, expertise from AI researchers, and how the progress of the AI work is going out. So you can figure out these questions for your own organization and market. Now, diving in quickly into the 4 sectors I've chosen to connect to the climate change and sustainability. Water. How can we use AI to make smarter decisions in the water sector, where we can use it for predictive maintenance of the water infrastructure. This is where AI machine learning is used for predicting the fault, the errors, and to optimize the activities for water systems, of course. We use it for monitoring and predicting water demand, and we use it for monitoring wastewater sources. You will see there are some common nuances to all these 4 sectors, in the sense that because machine learning focuses on prediction quite a lot and monitoring, you will see quite a lot of use cases where we talk about predictive maintenance or predictive actions, as well as monitoring of the management of a system, or monitoring some sources. This is very common for AI to help with. Then we have agriculture. Agriculture is quite in the spotlight more recently. I was very happy to see so many programs I was able to discover searching on for agriculture, and this is a good thing. We have precedent in agriculture for using AI. We have AI robotics, where we use robots to carry out agriculture tasks, from autonomous trucks to robots that pick up the crops. We have the precision monitoring. We have the land use planning and management, and monitoring of the crop, soil, and livestock health. It's really useful that we can use AI for mapping, monitoring, management, and of course, forecasting as well. Because machine learning is also used to provide agri-advisory. This is really useful. I think this is a big innovation and a big helpful for a human-in-the-loop system, for humans to work alongside machine learning and artificial intelligence to make use of these tools that they have, which is AI, because AI should be seen as a tool. It's not replacing anything. It's just augmenting our life. It's natural to evolve. It's natural to grow. It's natural for us not to do the brute work any longer. It's natural for us to think, okay, how can I make my crop in a more qualitative way? How can I increase my crops? How can I sell more? This should be the question we should ask. Or how could I enjoy doing agriculture more instead of just taking care of the soil? These are the tools that you can use. They won't replace the work, but they will help you. Now, energy. Energy is one sector that's where the AI impact has precedent and is already used for predicting, for forecasting, for smart monitoring, or coordination of energy. The sort of question that AI is used for in very complex systems are, how is the energy consumed in a city or in a small household? How is the energy consumed in your own house? When is the energy network used to capacity and how much? It is important to understand, because as we evolve and we have more energy created by consumers or companies that want to put it into the grid, AI could actually be used to automate operations managing this system, these complex systems. So decentralized energy networks could be better managed through the use of AI and machine learning, for example. Moving on, transport, again, a sector with a lot of precedent. There are a lot of startups being made. Good noise in this space. The sort of question that machine learning can help to answer is, how can you positively influence traffic in a city if you know in advance how it will develop in the next minutes or hours? Where and when will electric cars be charged? As we want to shift more towards using electric cars, we will have to manage this system of charging these electric cars, knowing where and when they will be charged, forecasting, and putting everything to availability. It's actually very important. AI and machine learning can be used here. We have already seen example of driverless long-haul and last-mile deliveries through autonomous trucks or delivery robots. Amazon is doing an amazing job here, and through their 10 billion Climate Pledge Fund, they are investing in startups that develop such solutions. So there's precedent for transport across all the boards, and it's actually amazing to be in this industry right now. So what's out there in the news? As you can see, there's a lot of interest for sustainability, for carbon neutral, and there's a lot of investment to our startups building such solutions. For example, we see here Carbon Stop. They just secured an investment to actually drive a cleaner environment, a cleaner energy creation. And we need a clean energy so we can create a better and more sustainable AI work. So everything is connected, interconnected, and I'm very happy to see such examples. Then we see Code Oceans. They are focused to helping researchers replicate data, because as I've previously mentioned, it's like researchers need to find a way to use their work in a much more sustainable way. So not replicating the heavy science, it will be a very useful step towards the sustainable AI work. Then we have also the AI applications in green telco machine, where we use AI to green the mobile networks. We have the example where we use AI to plants or fruits to detect disease or disorders. It's quite useful. And then we have the agriculture precedent with AI robots or using machine learning to forecast or manage crops. That's really useful, and I'm happy to see it more. I actually saw there was a show on a Romanian television promoting agricultural applications of AI and innovation in agriculture. So the more awareness is created for using AI as a tool in such sectors, the more we citizens can actually benefit from these solutions. And we should not be scared for using the solutions, for augmenting our work, so we can decide better, so we can move faster, so we can have a bigger impact and actually be kinder to our planet. And all these actions, they have a quantifiable economic benefit. We use AI to mostly avoid damage, to look at faults. And there is a paper built by Microsoft and PricewaterhouseCoopers in a report where how AI can enable a sustainable future, where they show that by 2030, the 4 sectors, water, energy, transport, and agriculture, may generate future GDP gains of $3.6 to $5.2 trillion as a result of AI applications. So there's an economic benefit here as well. I would say a huge one. So all the startups looking to develop such solutions, let's encourage them. This is going to have a quantifiable economic benefit. So it's going to be a win-win for all. But who are the enablers? Who is involved in this story? So there are 5 enablers: the government, the tech developers, the companies itself, the academia, and the NGOs. I think as general notes for all 5 groups, we need to focus more on facilitating awareness. Such events, like the one from today, Cluj Innovation Days, is an amazing event for creating and facilitating awareness, for creating an alignment for all the stakeholder groups, for encouraging collaboration and partnerships, which so deeply needed. Another factor to consider is in our AI work, we should consider from the start a responsible AI approach across all the stages of our AI work, from data, infrastructure, people, modeling, training, delivering, and so on and so forth. We should also address the digital infrastructure needs. We should have access to AI tools and data, ideally in the more democratized way. And we should provide upskilling and reskilling to adapt to transformation. I've just told you briefly, top level, 4 sectors where AI has precedent and is disrupting. Imagine the need of upskilling and reskilling in those sectors is huge. And we should all encourage the move from R&D, from research to scalable commercial deployment. One thing we at Bucharest AI, the AI community that is focused on community events as well as early business AI acceleration, was the fact that we observed a gap between AI programs out there that are built for technology readiness levels starting from 5 to 6 onwards, and the real AI startups in the market that are actually around technology readiness level 3. Just to give you a bit of context, technology readiness level 5 or 6 means you have a bit of attraction, means you have an MVP, means you have space to scale up these AI solutions for commercial deployment. Technology readiness level 3 instead is the stage where you just exited lab, you have an R&D sort of a product, an alpha or at most a beta stage of your product. You need proof of concept, you need more POCs to actually show up what you can do. You need to build up the traction, and this is where you grow. So there's a huge gap to be addressed here. What are some actions on these groups? So we need to think them of 4 pillars: people, process, technology, and data. Quickly, for people, the biggest challenge and the biggest action we can do here is to focus on the need of upskilling and reskilling. The process, we need to be able to innovate, and a culture of innovation accepts failures. I'm not sure if we as cultures, European culture, we are very comfortable with failure. So we need to consider failure as a step process. We need to focus more on delivering responsible AI as a process. And we need to be able to scale the lack of trust caused by the lack of transparency around approach, accuracy of output, perceived bias, and imperfect data. For technology, of course, we need more simplified AI tools that can be used by multiple stakeholders. For data, we need to generate fit-for-purpose data.
Just one thing, Alexandra, because we are above our allotted time, I'm fine, and I thank our organizers for the kindness. We can go on, and I think if we can make it 2-3 minutes, that would be excellent.
Okay. The last thing, what can we as citizens do? How much impact does an evening of Fortnite or TikTok actually have? Well, we need to green our digital life. We need to think up our gaming computer. Do we really need to have such a powerful computer? Do we even use it all the time? Do we need to stream our information all the time? Do we need all those IoT devices in our home? Are they actually helping us? Are they useful? We should not be afraid of using AI to make a greater impact, and we should partner more. And conclusions, of course, is like AI will be a disruptor for many industry, and it's gonna come up faster than we think. And facts like digitalization, automation, or for example, augmentation enable AI to transform all these sectors. And achieving AI for a sustainable reason will need a close partnership between all the stakeholders. We cannot do it otherwise, and we can reach the potential only if all the stakeholders can have some shared responsibility. So our systems and our models, business models, can be shaped by all the stakeholders with shared responsibility. That was me in a nutshell. I wanted to cover this 360 view of greening AI because it has 2 perspectives, as I mentioned, using AI for sustainability application and making our AI work more sustainable.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you so much for your time in listening me, and hope you enjoyed my greening AI session.
It's an excellent presentation, Alexandra, and I will abuse the kindness of the organizers for a few more questions, 2 questions in, let's say, less than 5 minutes. So it seems that our generation is one of the most disruptive generations ever. Okay, we have AI coming as a disruptor, we have the green technology, the green economy coming as a disruptor. But what do you think it will be the most disruptive effect of the green economy and AI blended together? Each all has its own effect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. I think it's a fabulous question. It focuses on the positive, so that's one point I would like all to be focused on. We should be exposed to the negatives, but we should focus on the positives. So I think that the biggest impact by 2030 will be on the fact that we're gonna make more use of responsible AI, and that will impact the applications from the data acquisition level to the modeling, to the training itself, to monitoring, to compliance to AI regulations that are being built, and to actually the final one, the impact. There are many papers, principles, directions for responsible AI. Everyone in the AI space, AI research space, is advocating for responsible AI. But I believe 10 years in the future from now, we're going to finally have more responsible AI with the use of explainable AI and so on. We're going to have more light into our AI work, and that's going to positively impact us, because we're going to be able to positively impact our work and actually be able to say how our AI work is used for good.
5 years ago, when I worked with AI, let's say the ethical AI was just a point of speculative debate. Now it's very real. Now we have also responsible and ethical and AI to deal with. And when do you think, so we brace for the impact, when do you think that the green AI will fully take place?
It's very interesting, the comment about ethic AI, because, for example, 2 years ago, when I was offering my consultancy for AI strategy, in any AI work, we are running due diligence for two main mandatory aspects: the technical due diligence for our AI work and the business due diligence for our AI work. More recently, starting 2020, we have another mandatory aspect, the ethical due diligence for our AI work. So that's important to be highlighted. And when do I think that the green AI work impact, the positive impact, is going to have a place? Well, probably closer to 2030, when the climate pledge by the top AI provider is going to reach its level, and everyone is going to reach a carbon net to zero, carbon neutral stage. And all the models will be more focused towards efficiency on top of accuracy as well. So I think in 9 years from now, we're going to be in a very, very good spot.
Thank you, Alexandra, very much, and thank you, Alex, very much. As I said, we don't have time to take questions from the audience. Send them to the organizer, we'll come back to you and answer them. Tomorrow we have another AI panel. And for now, I would like to say goodbye to everyone and to thank our panelists for their excellent presentation. Goodbye, and for me, see you tomorrow in the next AI panel. Goodbye for now.
Yes, goodbye. Bye. Take care.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Innovation Days is part of the Future Skills lifelong learning program. The project is co-financed from the European Social Fund through the Human Capital Operational Program 2014-2020.